Well, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Julie Fannin. I'm one of the owners of Naturalist Journeys. I see Peg Abbott is with us. She's our founder and one of the owners as well. So hi, Peg. And we have Chris Harbard here, who is the guide on our upcoming Lesser Antilles trip, which is really exciting. And he's going to present to you today about this trip and all the wonders that it has. Thank you for joining us today. We have, in the time that we sent out the invitation for this Zoom, we have had quite a few sales on the December departure of this Lesser Antilles trip, so there's just a few spaces left. So if you're very keen, send us an email tonight. And then we have another departure in April of 2026. And then Chris will touch on this, and maybe Peg will say a few words. In February of 2027, we have a 10-island Lesser Antilles trip, which is pretty exciting. The April trip is with Molly Brown. She is a new guide, very young, and an incredible photographer. So if you're interested in photography, she would be a really good one to join on the April trip. So without further ado, we'll send this to Chris and he will get started.
Well, thank you very much, Julie. Lovely to see you and lovely to see everyone here who's joined us. As Julie said, I'm a guide with Naturalist Journeys and I've been twice to the Lesser Antilles. It's a wonderful place to go and I'm looking forward to telling you all about it. So I'm now going to share my screen and get going with my presentation. Okay. So the area I'm talking about is the Lesser Antilles, and it's part of the Caribbean. Now think of the Caribbean, and most people picture sun-baked beaches, palm trees, and pirates. But I tend to picture rainforests, volcanoes, and not so much pirates of the Caribbean as parrots of the Caribbean. There's 8 endemic parrots in the Caribbean. 4 of them are on the islands of Cuba and islands nearby, of Jamaica, of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. But the other 4 are found on the islands of Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent. And these are the 3 islands that we visit. So we will be seeing half of the endemic parrots of the Caribbean on the 3 islands we visit. And they are kind of the main species that we go for, but we're obviously looking to see all the other endemic birds of the region and of the individual islands, plus whatever birds we see and whatever wonderful wildlife that we see. So here's the Caribbean, and up at the top you have the Greater Antilles. That includes Cuba, which is off the screen, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and then as you come to the British Virgin Islands, you start to join the Lesser Antilles, and that's the group that curves round to the south, Anguilla, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, and then Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Barbados, and Grenada. That's the Lesser Antilles. And the 3 islands that we will be visiting are Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So there's 8 sovereign states in the Lesser Antilles and lots of other islands which are just dependencies. So islands like Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent are all sovereign states. They're all independent of previous British colonization. But several islands like Guadeloupe and Martinique are still part of France, their dependencies. And others belong to the Netherlands, the UK, and the US. So in terms of Caribbean birds, there's more than 700 species recorded, and 185 species are endemic to the region. And of course, the largest number of endemic birds are on the islands like Jamaica, and then going to Cuba, Hispaniola, and Puerto Rico. But a lot of these smaller islands, the volcanic chain of the Lesser Antilles, all have a few endemic species each. Now I'm going to start off by looking at St. Lucia. This is the island that we first fly into. It's the very first island that we see. Here's a map of St. Lucia. And we fly into the airport at the very south, the international airport. And St. Lucia has 6 endemic species. And these are they: the St. Lucia Amazon, the parrot, the St. Lucia wren. This has been recently elevated. It used to be a subspecies of the house wren, but has now achieved full species status, and so have many of the other Lesser Antilles islands as well. So St. Lucia wren is a relatively new one. The right-breasted thrasher is another new one. This was split from a related species on Martinique, and those are the only 2 islands those species are found. The St. Lucia oriole is only on St. Lucia, the St. Lucia warbler, and finally the St. Lucia blackfinch. These are all endemic, found only on St. Lucia. There are some near endemic species. The grey trembler is on St. Lucia. We want to see that because otherwise you'd have to go to Martinique, and we're not going there. And the forest thrush, they're difficult to see. They're up in the high mountain forests, difficult to see. They are also found on Dominica as well as Guadeloupe and Montserrat. So there's plenty to go for, plenty to look for on our trip. So this is what we see as we arrive in St. Lucia, and you can see some of the volcanic peaks in the background. And the Lesser Antilles Islands, more or less all of them are formed from volcanoes, and you can see the remnants of those in some form or another. These 2 little peaks are called the Twin Pitons. The larger one, the Grand Piton, is the closest one, and the Petit Piton, the smaller one, is at the back. And you notice that the French name is used for them, and this is because St. Lucia belonged to the French, and then to the British, and then I think it went back to the French again, and it's been changed hands several times. But most recently it was British, and now it's independent. So this is where we'll be staying on St. Lucia. It's called the Ballenbush Estate. It was at one time a sugar plantation. This is the plantation house, and it's surrounded by wonderful grounds which contain remnants of the sugar harvesting days. But it's a beautiful place to walk around. There's another view of the veranda of the main house, and that's where we eat our meals, out on the veranda. And the meals are produced by Uta, the lady in blue there. She runs the Ballenbush Estate, and she and sometimes her daughters will be there to help her. Little cabins are dotted around, and that's where we'll be staying. And as I say, there's remnants of the plantation, like this big water wheel, which powered the water flowing through it would power one of the mill part of it that would help grind up the sugarcane. Lots of these lovely fig trees with their huge roots growing around everywhere and started to grow over everything that used to be part of the plantation. There's even a beach you can walk down to, a small one, but it's a very nice little beach, and get a chance there to actually see maybe a booby flying past or some terns, something like that. But there are lots of lovely birds on the estate, and you'll see some of the commonest ones probably immediately. This is one of the commonest birds found throughout the Caribbean. It's called the banana quit. It's a very tame bird. You'll find it coming to tables around hotels and things, looking for scraps. Nice little bird with the yellow belly, the black back and head, and that white stripe above the eye, and quite a small decurved beak with a little red gape. Very high squeaky call that they have, and you'll see them feeding around the fig trees and other trees all around the estate and virtually everywhere we go. The banana quit. Another bird which we'll see everywhere is the grey kingbird. It's a large flycatcher. You can see the similarity to the other kingbirds which we get in North America, but it doesn't have any yellow on it. It's basically all grey with a white belly and that stout beak. But the typical flycatcher flying out from a perch to grab something and then flying back again. And you'll see them perched on wires almost everywhere we go on every island we visit. In the fig trees around Ballenbush, this is a favorite bird of mine because it's not always easy to see, but there are plenty of them. And if you quietly watch, you'll probably find one creeping through the trees looking for caterpillars. It's the mangrove cuckoo, with that long tail with the white tips at the end of it, slightly peachy colored breast, white throat, black and yellow beak, and that lovely black mask against the grey head and grey back. Slightly larger, I think, than our yellow-billed cuckoo, but closely related to it. the wonderful mangrove cuckoo. And also in the fig trees there, you may see the scaly-breasted thrasher. There are several species of thrasher on the island. This is probably the commonest, has a slightly yellowish beak and a dark bill. Yellowish eye and a dark bill, all dark bill, contrasting with this scaly breast with little darker scales and paler on the belly. This is an interesting bird, not always easy to see, and it comes out at dawn and dusk, particularly at Ballenbush, onto the edge of the grassy areas from the woodland trees. It's the spectacled thrush, and that's certainly one I'll be encouraging people to get up before breakfast at dawn to have a chance of seeing this bird hopping around at the edge of the lawn areas in Ballenbush. And of course, hummingbirds. There are hummingbirds there. This is the smallest one, found throughout the area we're in. It's the Antillean crested hummingbird. This is the male with that delightful little vividly gleaming bright green, bright emerald crest. The female looks a little more like any other female. No crest. She has the paler underside, green on the back, but also a very, very nice looking bird. So lots of these around at Ballenbush as well. So it's a nice place to be introduced to some of the commoner birds, plus one or two more unusual ones. Other things are worth looking out for. This striking caterpillar is common there. I've seen it several times with this amazing yet creamy and black patterned back and underparts, and then these red legs and red tail and red head. It's difficult to tell which end is which, but the tail end has this little wispy tail here, which is the sort of thing you find on most sphinx moths, and this is from a sphinx moth, the Tetrio sphinx moth, also known as the frangipani moth. This is its caterpillar, very common there. And we'll be looking at butterflies as well. This is one of the commonest butterflies in the area. This is the great southern white. While it's like most other white butterflies, it does have one feature. The little clubs on the end of the antenna are bright turquoise, which I think is quite lovely. The great southern white. So we'll be setting off on our first trip out from Ballenbush. We're going straight into the rainforest. We'll be going to the Descartiers Rainforest Trail, marked on this map here with the red star. So it's right on the edge of one of the mountains there. It's up into the rainforest. And we'll be taking a trail along there. We'll be traveling there in vehicles from the local guiding company. And we'll be traveling on a trail which can get a little slippery. We always advise people to take care walking, to take a stick with them if they wish to, and particularly not to walk on the slippery rocks, but use the areas which are less slippery. It is probably the most difficult walk of the whole trip, so it's one that we take our time over, but it is well worth it, because along this trail and at the end of it, when we get to the parrot viewing area, there's a chance of seeing all but one of the endemic birds of St. Lucia. So plenty to look for, but there are other chances to see things if we miss them. So along the way, one of the things we hope to see is the Lesser Antillean peewee. It's a beautiful flycatcher. And in St. Lucia, it has this lovely, almost apricot color on the belly. They're paler on other islands. This one is a very distinctive looking subspecies, and it wouldn't surprise me if at some point in the future it gets split off to become the St. Lucia peewee. So just watch this space, because I bet that'll happen. Another special bird, this is one of the endemics, is found along this trail, and this is probably one of the best places to look for it, the St. Lucia black finch. This is the male, it lives up to its name, it's black, it's very obviously a finch. The female is much browner, and you have to take care to tell them apart from the Lesser Antillean bullfinch, which has a little red patch on the throat. But again, quite a tricky bird to see, but we have seen them every time we've gone on this trail. This is perhaps one of the most attractive of St. Lucia's endemic birds. It's the St. Lucia warbler. It's delightful yellow face and belly, contrasting with the gray back with the white wing stripes, and a very distinctive song, which we'll hear almost everywhere we go on St. Lucia. And you do see these warblers at Balambush as well. This is another thrasher. This one's slightly larger than the scaly-breasted. The eye isn't yellow, it's more of a pearl color, and it actually is called the pearl-eyed thrasher. And the beak is not black like on the scaly-breasted, it's more a whitish beak with a slightly darker tip. That's a bird that we see in the forests, and we should see it on this walk. Not always easy to see, but there are other opportunities later if we miss it. And this gorgeous, gorgeous hummingbird. This is the purple-throated carib. It has, as well as the lovely purple throat, it has this almost turquoise flash on each of the wings. And again, it's found quite commonly in higher elevation, so quite frequently seen along the walks in the rainforest, and there will be other places we'll see it. It's not endemic, it's found on many of the islands, so there will be other chances to see this wonderful, wonderful hummingbird. This is one of my favorites. You quite often hear it, not always easy to see. This is the rufous-throated solitaire. It has a delightful little song, but I just love the gray plumage and the way this rufous on the throat kind of softly blends in. You've got the little white facial markings, and a little bit more rufous down towards the legs as well. The feet are bright orange. It's got a quiet, otherwise a quiet bird. If it's not singing, you'd hardly know it was there. But not uncommon, again, in the forested highland areas. So a good chance to see them. This is probably one of our best opportunities on this first trip. There in the background, you can see a purple-throated carib perched with that turquoise patch on the wing. Lots of butterflies around wherever we go. This is one of the commoner ones. It's one of the tropical buckeyes. It may be the subspecies called the Caribbean buckeye. Not too sure, but a very attractive butterfly with the orange and brown, and then these eyes patterned on each wing. Okay, so having explored up in the mountains, the next day we'll probably take a trip up the west coast. Now, sorry, up the east coast. Now, if you look at St. Lucia, you can see the west coast is the Caribbean side, the east coast is the Atlantic side. And I don't think you have any difficulty in guessing where the roughest weather and the worst storms are. They're on the Atlantic side, obviously, where all the hurricanes come from. So that Atlantic shoreline is very rocky. There's not so many towns along it. There's a few towns there with harbors, but otherwise not a lot along that coastline. Whereas if you come to the west side, the Caribbean Sea, that's where all of the towns are. Where we are going to be at Balambush, I should have pointed out on the previous map, but it's down towards the very bottom there, just north of that town called Laborie. In between Laborie and Choiset is Balambush. So we'll be driving around the bottom end of the island and up to that first star just before Miku. We'll be exploring an area there to look for another endemic, and then going up the coast to Dennery, where again, there's a nice area of a river valley we can explore. Plus the town of Dennery is interesting to see. It has the harbor there, and occasionally the boats are coming in and unloading fish. We'll see whether that happens when we're there. And then when we come back, we go to the very southern end of St. Lucia. There's a little peninsula there with a high cliff, and that's a great vantage point to look down for things like boobies and tropic birds. And we'll take a look there. So that's a nice little day trip out. We usually have lunch up by Dennery in the local restaurant. And one of the elements of this trip is to explore some of the local food as well, going to local restaurants so that people can choose something interesting that they might like to try in the way of local culinary pleasures. So this is the bird we'll be going for. First thing, near Miku. This is the white-breasted thrasher, the other endemic. And there's one place which we reliably go to see it. It's a small trail off a very busy road. We park off the road and then walk along this trail. We have to be careful. The trail is well marked, but this particular, the dry forest area that this bird is in, is the home for the fer-de-lance snake, which we probably won't see and we probably won't get near one, but they will be there. And we need to stay on all trails when we're in that type of habitat, and we'll make sure everyone does, just in case. We don't want to take any risks. But this bird usually comes out to have a look at us, and you can see why he's called the white-breasted thrasher. The main part of the bird is black on the head and the back and the wings, the tail and the beak, but the throat and the belly is brilliant bright white. A really very, very attractive bird. And there's usually 2 or 3 pairs around along this trail. So a very good chance of seeing them. We may see a relative, the grey trembler. Again, related to the thrashers, has this long, slightly down-curved beak, bright yellow eye, grey plumage, and it literally does tremble. It literally quivers. It'll perch and quiver, hence it's being known as a trembler. It's a near endemic. It's only otherwise found on Martinique. And there is another relative, the brown trembler, which we may come across on one of the other islands. That's found on a few more islands, though. But the grey trembler we'll be looking for at this particular spot, and we may well see it elsewhere. We might come across one of the other hummingbirds, the green-throated carib. Unlike the purple-throated, this one has a vivid green throat. It doesn't have the turquoise patches on the wings. It's much more greeny on the back, slight bluish patch on the belly. Again, that slightly down-curved beak that the caribs have. Quite a good size hummingbird, this one. So that's the 3 species then I've shown you: the Antillean crested, the purple-throated, and now the green-throated carib. These are the 3 species that you find on St. Lucia. So this is Dennery that I mentioned. This is the harbour. There's the gentleman there with the fish that he's caught, which he will be gutting. And there were a couple of boats that particular time had come in, but usually the boats come in towards the end of the day, and we're usually there earlier on, so we don't expect to see many, but we always look just in case. All right, so the next day we'll be taking a trip to initially do something which is not exactly bird related, but there is certainly a chance of seeing birds. We'll be going to that bottom star, to a place called Fondue. And just above it, you can see the red star at Soufrière. Those are the 2 places we'll be visiting. So Fondue is basically a cocoa plantation. It's more than just a cocoa plantation. It actually makes chocolate there. It's an ecotourism center. There's some lovely chalets there where people stay. It has a very nice restaurant. It's been visited by Prince Charles and Camilla. And it really is a delightful place. So here you can see some of the cocoa pods, some green ones and some slightly riper brown ones there. And we actually watch them see how they pick the cocoa, how they'll take the beans out, how they'll roast the beans, dry the beans, and crush the beans up. And then we actually get to help make some chocolate. We actually mix it up. We add the sugar to the cocoa powder. We mix it all up. We make some chocolate, and we actually turn it into bars of chocolate. And while we're having lunch later on, they put them in the freezer. And that after lunch, we can collect our very own chocolate bars that we've made and wrapped ourselves and take them back home. So that's quite a bit of fun. And it really is a lovely plantation, but we get to walk around the plantation a bit, and there's a lot of bird life in the area because it's full of beautiful local trees, and another good chance of the grey trembler here.
Real quick, sorry, could I just remind everyone to please mute themselves?
Thank you, Julie. Okay, yeah, lovely restaurant there and a good choice of local food to eat. So Soufrière we go to after this, and this is a beautiful bay, as I say, on the western coast of St. Lucia. The last trip I was there was a beautiful 5-masted sailing ship had come in, and it really is a lovely place just to drive through the town. But just down the road from Soufrière, there is a volcano, and it's actually a volcano you can drive into. It's a drive-in volcano. We will drive in, and we'll get out at one of the viewing places, and you can see the bubbling pools of mud. You can smell the sulfur, Don't worry, it hasn't erupted for several hundred years, but it is still very active in its own little way. There's a group of us there enjoying the sulfur gases. And in the trees nearby, we're lucky enough to see, feeding on a fruiting tree there, a wonderful scaly-naped pigeon, beautiful bird. So again, wherever we'll be going, whatever we'll be looking for, we'll also be looking for birds. And wherever we look, we usually find them. There's the botanic gardens nearby with waterfalls and again, all sorts of amazing plants. And as you would expect, lots of wildlife, plenty of hummingbirds here. It all depends on what time we have, whether we visit some of these sites, but this is one which I always hope we can get to. Okay, so after that, we have to head up north to Castries. We flew into the bottom airport at the bottom there, Hewanora International Airport, but we're flying on domestic flight because we're going into Ireland. So we have to go way up north, up to Castries, to the George Charles Airport. And visiting Castries gives us a chance to go to the market. Always a great place to visit. It's where all the local people go to buy all sorts of things. There's lots of fabrics there, lots of knickknacks and t-shirts and things like that to buy. A wonderful place to wander around and explore, which we will do before we catch our flight. So we say goodbye to St. Lucia after a few days and head next to Dominica. So to get to Dominica, we have to fly from St. Lucia over the top of Martinique, one of the French islands, to the north, this is, and then down to Dominica. And we come in, the airport marks with that red star at the top, just north of Marigot. And then we'll drive probably down along the little red road to the red star there, which is our hotel near Salisbury on the west coast. Again, a lot of the hotels are on the Caribbean side rather than the Atlantic side. So there are 3 endemic bird species in Dominica. The parrot, there's 2 on Dominica, the red-necked Amazon and the critically endangered imperial Amazon. And this really is down to a very small number. The place that we go to look for them maybe has 6 pairs. Not really sure. It's quite a big valley, and we have to get very lucky to actually see them or even hear them. The red-necked is a little less confined to these valleys, so you find them a little more widely. So we should find the red-necked without any problem at all. And finally, the Calinago wren. This was the Dominica subspecies of the house wren, which has got promoted to full species level. And we should have no problem hearing and seeing this. The near endemic species there is the blue-headed hummingbird, also on Martinique. The forest thrush, which I mentioned in St. Lucia, it's also there on Dominica, as well as Guadeloupe and Montserrat. Then lastly, the plumbeous warbler, delightful bird, also found on Guadeloupe, which we're not visiting, so this is our one chance to see that. So we're staying at the Tamarind Tree Hotel. Very, very nice hotel. Here's a view of it from just offshore. The building in front of you there is the outdoor restaurant, which is perched on top of a cliff, as you can see. And just in from that is the main hotel with a little pool beside it. It's a wonderful place to stay and a lovely place to have meals as well. There's the dining room, particularly nice in the evening as the sun goes down. And an interesting menu there, different every night. You get your starter, your main course, and your dessert. And it's always something, again, locally caught, local food, prepared in a traditional manner. So very, very nice to enjoy that. And in the bar at the back, there's a very good selection of bush rums. Lots of different rums made with different herbs and flavorings and things in them. Well worth sampling 1 or 2 of those. Okay, so there's a trail which runs across the road from the hotel down towards the river, and we will probably wander down that trail more than once. Goes to a bridge over the river, which is always worth looking at, and goes into some wooded areas as well with lots of trees. The smooth-billed Arnie is quite common around there. We should see those. You can see the beak there has none of the ridges that the groove-bill does. Now very rare in the US, but pretty common through the Caribbean. The smooth-billed Arnie, related to the cuckoos with a long black tail. The yellow warbler here tends to have a bit of orange on the head. It's known more locally as the golden warbler, and it's kind of part way between the yellow warbler and the mangrove warbler, which has an all orange head in some mangrove areas around the Caribbean. But on the Caribbean islands, it tends to be just on the forehead or the top of the head. Should see plenty of those on Dominica. But on the river, if we're lucky, we get to see this giant, the ringed kingfisher. Absolutely huge, loud rattling call. You can't miss it if it's there, and it generally is. And we usually have 2 or 3 goes to see it or get better views of it. Okay, so we were at Salisbury on the west coast, and from there we'll be moving up just a little bit north of Collyho, up into some of the river valleys up there. And this is where we're going to encounter the plumbeous warbler. This is one of the birds we really want to see, but luckily it really makes itself known. It's very active, like most warblers. It lives up to its name. It's a lead-colored plumbeous, lead-colored gray, with beautiful bright white supercilium, a little white patch under the eye, and 2 white wing bars. Beautiful little bird, and should have no problem finding and getting good views of this. I hope also we will see this beautiful bird. It's the red-legged thrush. This is found through the Greater Antilles quite commonly, from Cuba right along through the other islands. But for some reason, it also reaches down to Dominica. It's not found on the Lesser Antilles to the north, but there is a population on Dominica. And actually, this has been seen more than once in the grounds of the hotel. So we can look out for it in all sorts of places, but a beautiful, beautiful bird. I love the red ring around the eye. I love the black and white throat patch, and of course, the bright red legs. It's just a beautiful, beautiful bird. Another delightful, beautiful bird is this almost understated, the colors, the Lesser Antillean euphonia. This beautiful mossy green color, but then that contrasting, not quite pale blue, mid-blue head, and a little yellow patch on the crown. I'm very fond of euphonias. Quite short-tailed, dumpy little birds, usually high, squeaky calls. They're often fly in pairs, sometimes more than that, maybe a family group or something. And we should encounter them. We could encounter them on any of the islands, but we certainly, if we haven't seen it already on St. Lucia, we'll be looking out for it here on Dominica, the gorgeous Lesser Antillean euphonia. This is the Lesser Antillean flycatcher, found through the Lesser Antilles. They do look slightly different on some of the islands, but you can see it's very much related to the Myarchus flycatchers like ash-throated and dusky-capped, very similar with the pale yellow belly, the slightly orange tail there. So it is a Myarchus flycatcher, that sort of size, one of the slightly larger flycatchers. And interestingly, certainly on the December trip, you get this taste of Christmas because there are poinsettias growing everywhere around Dominica, large bushes with the leaves turning that characteristic pinkish red color. Not just birds, lots of other wildlife. There are many endemic lizards. There is a couple of endemic lizards, I think 3 there are on St. Lucia, a couple on offshore islands, but one found more commonly. This is the Dominican anole lizard, again, an endemic, and this is the black race of it. It's the black form of it. It's normally a greeny color like many lizards, but this is the black form. Delightful looking creature. And at the end of some of these walks, we come across a waterfall. We'll always let you know in advance, because if we do find one, sometimes there's a pool at the bottom of it. And on this particular occasion, it was a chance for a couple of the guests to have a swim in the pool. Very refreshing, I can assure you, because the weather is a little bit humid there. So taking a dip can be lovely. Always comes back to food, and whenever on Dominica, we always pay one trip to Molly's Pork Parlor. You can't see off to the right there is a big barbecue, and she's continuously cooking pork on it and other dishes, chicken and various other things as well. And you can see everyone queuing up here enthusiastically to get our lunch there that day. We will certainly be paying a visit to Molly when we're there. Okay, so another trip further up the coast takes us to Portsmouth, quite a largish town, and it sits on the edge of a river called the India River. And we'll be taking a boat trip up here and exploring in amongst the mangroves and the other trees. It's full of these dragon blood trees, so there's big roots, which have a red sap apparently. Lots of palm trees as well. If you look along the shoreline, there's lots of different colored crabs there. This white one is a local one that's quite well known. And the Lesser Antillean iguana is there as well, quite often sitting lazily on a branch overhanging the river. You don't realize it's there until maybe you see it move, or maybe you just notice the shape there. Typical iguana with this crested, pointed crest on the back, lovely green colored creature. It's related to the green iguana found around the Caribbean, but this is a separate species found only in the Lesser Antilles. Green herons along the river, yellow-necked night herons there as well. And one or two places like this. This apparently was built for the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It actually featured in the movie. They've kept it there. There's a little deck up along it now. You can actually land and look inside. We don't do that. I gather it's a little rickety. But we do go further up to a place where we can get off and sample some bush rum. So a lovely trip up the river and back again. And then the following day, the last day usually, we go down to Roseau, which is the capital of Dominica, and we join a ship which will take us out looking for whales. Because off this coast on the Caribbean side of Dominica, there are a couple of pods of sperm whales. They're regularly found there, and these trips that take us out have all the high-tech kind of sonar for little dipping the microphone into the water and actually listening for the clicks of the whales and determining where they are and heading towards them. We got lucky on our first trip. We saw some fairly easily. The second trip, we chased all the way up to the far north to Portsmouth and then back down again. And sadly, we didn't encounter any, although we heard a couple, we didn't actually find them. But if you get lucky, you're out on a boat for several hours. Excuse me. Thunderstorm warning, sorry. For several hours, and there's sperm whales, sometimes quite close up like these two. You've got good close views of them, and eventually seeing the flukes as they dive. And of course, once they've gone down, they don't come up for a while. But it's nice to get out there, out on the water. There's a chance of encountering other seabirds. We saw a couple of skuas, boobies out there. So it's a very nice time. And of course, there's refreshing drinks to be had, a rum punch on board. So even if you don't see the whales, you can still enjoy yourself. Okay, one last trip, of course, we have to make when we're on Dominica, because the one thing we haven't seen, which we have to see, are the endemic parrots. And for this, we have to go right up to Morne Diablotin. We have to go up there early in the morning. So what happens generally is we get a packed breakfast, which the hotel provides for us. We drive up to the information center at the beginning of the trail. We sit there and have our breakfast, and then we climb up into the rainforest to look for the parrots. Not too bad a walk. It's a fairly well-marked trail, not too much of a problem, not too slippery, and not too far either, which is nice. and a chance of seeing things along the trail. Ruddy quail doves might fly across, and there's a chance of seeing hummingbirds as well. But quite often on the way up there, we might see our first parrot, which is the red-necked. Here's one enjoying a fruit of some kind. But this is what you see when we get to the top. It really is a thick, thick forest. The cloud does come down and cover it. It does rain, very much so. It's rainforest. So you're never quite sure how you're going to get on. And usually we spend a few hours up there watching the red-necked parrots fly by and listening for the very different call note of the imperial parrot and hoping that we'll get to see one of those. We have been successful in the past. We've seen one perched on one of these trees, managed to get the scope on it and people to have a good look at it, and a couple of distant flyby views as well. But it really is a very rare parrot, maybe something like 50 pairs in the wild, something like that, and about half a dozen of them in this quite large valley. But put the time in and we have a good chance of seeing them. And if we don't see it on the first attempt, we can always make an afternoon attempt and hope to get one at the end of the day as well. This is a group with our guide with us. Dr. Birdie is his name. Bertie, I suppose he was originally called, but as he got interested in birds, they called him Birdie, Dr. Birdie. And he's quite a character, as you can tell. All the local guides are really fantastic. We usually have a couple with us on St. Lucia. We have Dr. Birdie with us and Dominica, and one or two others usually join us on the next island, St. Vincent. They're all very good. Anyway, imperial parrot, I don't have any good photographs of it. They're difficult to photograph, but luckily Dominica celebrates them by putting them on their stamps. And here's a lovely stamp of the imperial parrot. So I mentioned there are hummingbirds up there. This is the one we'll be looking for, the blue-headed hummingbird. This is one of the near endemics found only here and Martinique, I think it is, just those two islands. So we'll definitely be looking for this. If we don't see it on the walk, then there are a couple of places on the road in which we can look at perhaps coming out where there's a good chance of encountering them. We often come across broad-winged hawks as well. These are not birds wintering here because the broad-winged hawks, although it's a migrant in the US, we're very familiar with them migrating in large numbers, heading south for the winter. They're actually resident in large parts of the Caribbean, and they get joined by migrants from North America. This was probably a resident bird, I think. So nice to see those. And again, when you get up into these valleys, up in the mountains, and you see a raptor circling around, this is what it's going to be, the broad-winged hawk. Okay, so we have to leave Dominica to get to our next island. Now, as I say, we traveled from St. Lucia by leapfrogging over Martinique to the north to Dominica. And sadly, we can't simply just fly from Dominica straight to St. Vincent. Because the airlines being airlines, they say, well, we can't do that. We don't have the right permissions or whatever it is. So in order to fly from Dominica to St. Vincent, we have to fly from Dominica back to St. Lucia. And then we have to change to a plane taking us to Barbados. And then in Barbados, we fly again on a separate flight on a different plane to St. Vincent. So really do island hopping that day, and that can take most of the day, depending on how the flights are arranged. And they can change them at a whim. If in the morning they decide, oh, there's not enough people on the morning flight, then they'll simply cancel it and make everyone take the afternoon flight. But it's never really been a problem, apart from losing us a few hours. Last year, what it did is we actually got to spend 3 or 4 hours on Barbados. And the organizers of the trip managed to set up a hotel for us to go to. We had nice drinks there and actually managed to see the endemic Barbados bullfinch while we were there, which was a rather nice bonus. So, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, our last island. So we fly in the south and go to our hotel, Beachcombers Hotel, where that star is right in the far, far south of the island. And there are three endemic species we're looking for: the St. Vincent Amazon, the parrot, the St. Vincent wren, another one of these house wrens promoted to full species, and the whistling warbler. The whistling warbler is definitely the one to see. It's well, I'll tell you more about it when we get to it. Two near endemic species, the Grenada flycatcher and the Lesser Antillean tanager, two species which are found on Grenada to the south, but we're hoping to see them on St. Vincent while we're there. Then we don't have to go to Grenada. There's the Beachcombers Hotel we'll be staying at. It's perched right on the edge of a bay with a lovely beach. So you walk through between those two buildings down to the restaurant area, and then there's steps down to the beach. And there may well be time to enjoy a bit of time on the beach there. We'll certainly enjoy time in the restaurant, which is very good. There it is. That's a group of us having our final farewell meal in the restaurant at the Beachcombers. Very nice menu it is. Okay, so from the far south where we're based, we'll be going up to where the star is marked to look for this bird, the St. Vincent parrot. And one of the easiest areas to get to is the Jennings Valley. I say easy, the roads aren't great, but with a good 4x4, it's no problem. And we drive up there, get out of the car, usually at the end of the day, and the birds start flying in towards the end of the day. And they literally fly into the trees by this lodge that we park at, fly right into the trees and sit there, maybe looking for a bit of fruit in the trees, but gradually gathering. Two or three will get together, and then they'll fly off noisily later on. They're really very colorful birds. This is a digiscoped image of one that I took last year. Beautiful colors with yellows and browns and blues, and yeah, really very nice. And when they fly, magical patches of color in the wings. Really one of the most colorful parrots I've seen, I have to say. And certainly of all the parrots, these are the easiest to see. Never any guarantees, but always a good chance at this particular place. It's well known for it. In fact, there's a lodge there which is called Amazona's Nest, which I think is a very apt name. Lots of other nice things to see there. This is the St. Vincent bush anole, beautiful green, bright green lizard with a bit of blue on the head. Very, very nice, very common there. And you might see something that you recognize while you're there. There was this merlin there. Now, this is a winter visitor. This has come down from North America, and it's spending its winter vacation in the Caribbean, which is what we like to do. Okay, so the other place that we have to go to is up again in the highland areas of St. Vincent, an area called Montreal, and this is where we go to look for the whistling warbler. It's an easy drive up there, but the walk after that isn't so easy. Initially, it's across some flat agricultural land on a good path, but you can see those trees up ahead lead up into the cloud forest. That's where we have to go for the whistling warbler. Now, it's a species that was never that common on St. Vincent. It's found in the mountainous areas of the north and the south. And in 2017, was it, I think, there was a big volcanic eruption in the north, which damaged a lot of the habitat. And so the area that used to be used as a reliable spot to see this warbler basically vanished under ash, and the habitat was destroyed. They are coming back there now, I understand, but this is still, although tricky, still the easiest and best place to see them, the place that we'll be going. So it is a slippery walk, especially if it's just been raining. The steps up the side of the hillside are quite large. We always advise people to take a stick or walking pole or something like that to help. And we'll do our best to make sure everyone can scramble up and get a chance of seeing these lovely little warblers. On the way, we have a chance to see the Lesser Antillean tanager. It's otherwise only found on Grenada, so we hope to get a good view of that. And the Grenada flycatcher, again, another Myarchus type with the pale yellow belly and the the rufous-ish in the tail, Grenada flycatcher. But this is the real prize, the whistling warbler. It does have a whistling little song. I have yet to see one. I've heard it. Others on the trip did not have their view blocked by a tree as I did, so they saw it hop up and hop down again. I sadly didn't, so I'm hoping that this year is going to be third time lucky. But they're there. They're just a difficult bird to see, but we will be trying as we do every time. And they have been seen both trips, just not by me. Other things up there, this is the St. Vincent tree anole, not quite as green as the other one, and some nice little markings down the back. And I was delighted to see this St. Vincent blue hair streak, an endemic butterfly. I do enjoy my butterflies, but to get an endemic one that is this good looking was definitely a wow moment for me. I think we all enjoyed that. On the way back, we'll be on the lookout for the wren. Here it is. It's not like the normal house wrens. It has a very brown back, quite whitish underneath, with some kind of buffy along the flanks, and quite a long yellow bill, very different from our house wrens. The St. Lucia one is much, much whiter underneath, again with quite a long bill. The Dominica one has a shorter bill, and the bird is almost a rusty brown color all over, looking again very different. So three very different wrens. They should never be house wrens because they are definitely species in their own right. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's called, because it's not just the main island of St. Vincent. There's this whole chain of islands to the south, which are part of the country. And these include the large island of Bequia, smaller islands like Mustique, which some of you may have heard of, and other islands in the chain going down there. They're the playground of the rich, basically. Rich and famous, a lot of these islands. But we will be visiting them. And we'll be taking a boat trip out from quite close to where we are, on the very south there. We're taking a boat trip out, which will go round the island of Bequia, around some of the little offshore islands, Île à Quatre, Pigeon Island, Petit Nevis, then into Port Elizabeth for lunch, and then back to the main island. And the reason for this is that most of the islands around here have something which attracts seabirds, maybe cliffs, or maybe little offshore stacks, but there are plenty of them, and therefore lots of seabirds here, and that's what we'll be hoping to see. And certainly on the boat trip out to Bequia, there are usually boobies flying past of up to 3 species. I've had masked booby, brown booby, and red-footed booby out there. So we'll be looking for those magnificent frigate birds everywhere. This is the boat that we go in, the Bonsai 2. And here we are exploring around the island. So royal terns are everywhere. We get good views of those. I say here are some of the stacks that you get. These will have breeding brown boobies on them probably, just like these here. Wonderful looking birds. That lovely chocolate brown color contrasting with that brilliant white belly. And then if that wasn't enough, bright yellow feet. They really are fabulous looking birds. Brown boobies. This is the prize though. This is the red-billed tropic bird. And there are 1 or 2 locations where they breed. And on both of these times I've visited, we've seen them sitting in these little crevices, little caves in the side of one of the rocks. And there will be a bird sitting on its nest. Look at that. Those incredibly long tail feathers. They look magical in flight. And the lovely black mask, bright red beak. Beautiful red-billed tropic bird. So if we don't see them flying around, we'll almost certainly see 1 or 2 perched in their little caves like that. Lots of ospreys around, plenty for them to feed on, lots of fish offshore, and nice places to breed around the island. So usually several of these get seen as we go around on our trip. There's lots of nice beaches there, very much a Caribbean scene, golden beaches, palm trees, and we will stop and maybe we'll have a beach walk, do some snorkeling. There's some good snorkeling there. Again, all of this is on offer if people would like to do that. I seem to think on the rocks down the beach there were some ruddy turnstones when we were there. Lunch afterwards, very nice again, local food, and then back to our hotel, probably for the last evening and dinner. In the hotel grounds, there's lovely things to see, like this tropical mockingbird. And you might be puzzled to see this little blackbird here. Now, I started this talk with a picture of a banana quit, if you remember it, with the yellow belly, the black head, and the little red gape and the small beak. And this kind of reminds you of it, but it's all black. And in fact, it's a black morph of the banana quid, which is found on St. Vincent. And you get them in the hotel grounds, and we'll see them elsewhere on the islands as well. But I thought having started with the other normal banana quid, I'd finish with this rather unusual looking all black one. Just to show you how wonderful it is, how varied the wildlife is. It's absolutely beautiful 3 islands to visit, lots to see, lots to experience, lots of good food. Of course, always good food. And then fly out and say goodbye to Dominica, goodbye to St. Lucia, goodbye to St. Vincent, and goodbye to the Lesser Antilles. I definitely recommend a visit there. The 3-island trip is superb. You spend several days on each island. The 10-island, spectacular it's called. It is spectacular. You really are island hopping. We do 3 islands in 11 days. These are like 14 days doing 10 islands. Yeah, it's a lot of traveling, a lot of hopping around. You'll see a lot more fabulous endemic birds. I recommend both of them very much. A wonderful area to go to. And thank you, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed my little talk.
Chris, thank you so much. That was lovely. If anyone has questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we can get them to Chris. I have a question. Chris, do you have a favorite island on this tour?
Gosh, yeah, I do. It's St. Lucia. I had been there before, and I've always liked it. It does have a lot of birds on it. It's difficult to say why I like it particularly. I can't really say, but that has to be my favorite of the 3. But all of them have wonderful things to recommend, and I thoroughly enjoy each of them, and I can't wait to get back to them this December. But yeah, for me, St. Lucia somehow does. And it's very nice that they were all once British. Because you go into the supermarket there and there's things from British shops there to buy, which I always love to do. So that's why I like all of the islands. But yeah, in the St. Lucia one, I found some particular British things that I enjoy that I was happy to buy and take home with me.
That's great. We do have a question. How much traveling is on the 3-island tour and how much is on the 10-island tour? And maybe you can speak to the 3-island, and if Peg is still on, perhaps she'd be willing to speak about the 10-island tour.
Yeah, the far the 3-island tour is concerned, these are small islands. I mean, the Lesser Antilles Islands are all small. So even if you are traveling, you're not going long distances. But having said that, the roads aren't always great. You may get diverted because there's been a rock fall or something like that. So you've got to be prepared for things taking a little bit longer than they would normally, but you're not spending hours traveling. And if there is a travel from top to bottom of the island, we always break it up in stops for birding or refreshment stops on the way. So there's not a lot of non-stop traveling to do on any of these trips. There is travel between the islands, and as I've said, that particular one from Dominica down to St. Vincent, it can have problems because of the airlines. But again, there's breaks on the way, so nothing goes on for too long.
And Peg, can you talk about then the inner island travel on the 10-island, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm technologically challenged here. The 10 Island is a blast, but it is a blitz. I love that we offer both because I think the 3 Island, you really get to go a little more in depth and you have time to enjoy that Caribbean vibe. So the 10 Island, you have to pick the perfect suitcase because 10 islands usually means 10 times that you're either going through customs or immigration or making a change by ferry or flight. So we are well taken care of. Our guide, Ryan Chenery, knows the islands well, and we had fabulous success finding the endemics. But the wear and tear of travel was definitely there on the 10 island trip. It's not for everyone. It's definitely a go for it birding blitz, and it's fun in its own way. But the 3 Island lets you go a little bit deeper and take a breath and get in the pool and do all those fun things you think of with the Caribbean.
And Peg, do you have a favorite island?
Oh, that is really tough. We worked on Trinidad and Tobago for 7 years and I was down there a lot. So St. Vincent I could get to from Tobago at the time on a direct flight and have a really good friendship there with loose people that are starting the nature center there, Lystra. And
Mm.
so I enjoyed that island perhaps because it was less developed and just had so much potential and got to meet local people. But like you, I think St. Lucia just has something very special. It's beautiful and diverse and very comfortable.
So there's
Excellent.
questions about the luggage size on the inter-island travel. Is the luggage size limited?
No, I take a normal suitcase. It's whatever it is, 20, 23 kilogram suitcase, something like that. That's what I pack with me. So that size bag is fine. No problems there.
And Peg, did you have any limited?
We weren't limited per se, but the happiest travelers had one light wheeled suitcase and that was it. Because you are on the go a lot. The less you bring, the better. You can get laundry done while there. So I'd say on the 3 Island, it's less of a concern. On the 10 Island, I would really do some research on how to go as light as possible.
Okay. Of course. Well, if we have any more questions, pop them in there. A quick note, Peg mentioned Lystra on St. Vincent, and we we're really thrilled to help her. We do some fundraising for her, and we've done some fundraising for her. She's she's secured a property to build a nature center that focuses on education for young children, working with them about conservation on their island. And I think in the last year, we have been able to raise and match about $10,000. So we're really thrilled to be able to directly support some conservation work there too.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will, I think I mentioned Amelia, who's normally our technical director, is getting married on Sunday. So we will have a recording of this. We hope, if I haven't screwed it up, and we will get that out in the next probably 2 weeks so she can take her honeymoon. If you're interested in booking this trip or the April trip or the February 2027 10 island trip, you can email our sales team at travel@naturalistjourneys.com. And if you can't make any of these trips, but you are interested in Caribbean birding, we have I believe, February Puerto Rico trip. That's a 6-night, 7-day, very short, sweet birding blitz that is in 2026, and then we have a March Jamaica trip too. So any of those are on our website, and our travel planners would be happy to answer questions. So Chris, thank you very much. That was so lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peg, for your help.
Yes, and thank you, Chris. I do think you're the next David Attenborough. I just love listening to your presentations. So Really appreciate all the time you put into this talk, and your slides are just gorgeous. And I hope that your clients traveling with you bring cameras and have some fun getting their own images too.
Thanks, Peg. Thanks, Julie. Goodbye, everyone.
Very much. Bye.